Last week, I got another message from my new tenant. But it wasn't about the leak in her basement again. No, it was a new request. She wanted me to send someone over for a pest control check. She claimed to have heard strange noises within the walls. And of course, she added a complaint about the basement leak worsening. I was getting tired of her constant texts, especially regarding that pesky leak. She was relentless, and I'd have to find a reason to evict her. In an effort to get a better understanding of the issue, I asked her for more information. Were they large noises, like some animal, or skittering sounds like insects? After a few hours passed, she messaged just one word: yes. To shut her up, I called Ray, a local pest control guy I used, and he said he would check it out that day. For a one-man business, he was remarkably dependable, and most importantly, he was cheap. With all the buildings I had, I felt like I was single-handedly keeping his pest control business afloat. I'd taken a risk buying a house in that neighborhood. I'd gotten rich buying cheap, dying houses, but this one was an absolute steal. But if I'd only sold it, I wouldn't be dealing with whatever this was now. I had a Halloween party to attend, and it was almost time to get ready. Frankly, I hated being a landlady. Tenants were a nuisance. Dealing with them was messy, and they did nothing but complain about their problems. But still, renting out these old houses made me rich, and if you ignore the issues long enough, most tenants would stop bothering you. Waiting for Ray's call, I dreaded the potential cost of repairs. But the call never came. Whenever I'd needed Ray in the past, his estimate call was even faster than his response time. Everyone's always ready to get paid. I gave up waiting and went to the house myself, pulling behind the house so nobody would bother my Beamer. I wanted to resolve this issue fast and get out of there as soon as possible. As I pulled up, Ray's dilapidated truck sat in the overgrown driveway. I stepped out, locked my car doors, and knocked on the front door. No response. Frustrated, I tried calling the tenant again, and I could hear her phone ringing through the thin door. I knocked again, getting more annoyed, but still no answer. I used my key and clicked the lock open. I called out, but the house answered with silence. The interior was just as cold as the chilly evening outside, and I strained my ears to listen for any voices or footsteps on the old wooden floorboards, but there was nothing, just silence. I closed the door behind me, even more irritated that this was going to take longer than I wanted. I stepped through the front room, and the silence pressed in like the house was holding its breath. I wondered how people could live in houses like these. I stepped into the small, dimly lit kitchen and called out again, my voice reverberating up the stairs. The upper floor was equally dark, with no signs of life. The frigid house reminded me of the deal I got on that bargain insulation I'd bought when the upstairs needed gutting. There'd been a leak in the top floor bathroom, and they'd found dirty, black water drenching the interior of the walls and pooled a few inches deep in the basement. That deal was just too tempting to resist, but with every text from the tenant about the water in the basement, it was clear the cheap contractor had botched the repairs. You really do get what you pay for. I was wearing new shoes and did not want to go down to the basement if it really was as bad as the tenant had been claiming. The basement, they must be down there. I found the door to the basement open with Ray's Have a Heart trap at the top of the stairs, so I assumed they must be below. But listening closer, I heard only silence, and dripping water. I pulled the chain to the light at the top of the stairs and started down, but now the light was behind me, so I had to use my phone's flashlight to see. It smelled dank and moldy, like a cave. At the last step, the light from my phone shone on the black water that was pooled at least a few inches deep, all over the floor. A large hole in the wall next to the stairs exposed a patch of thick black mold. The nauseating moldy odor hit me hard, making me cover my nose from that contaminated, stale air. I leaned forward, peering into the hole. When it happened, a scraping noise echoed from within the wall, growing louder as it approached the hole. But then it stopped. I felt the hairs on the back of my neck stand up and had an overwhelming feeling of dread. As I strained on the edge of the step, leaning to see inside the old basement wall, I saw something dark shift within the wall, edging closer to the hole. I watched dark trickles run towards the edge of the hole, reaching long, inky fingers to wrap around the jagged plaster lip in front of me. I moved back as the sound got louder and hit the far side of the stairs, my legs slipping into the murky water below. Thick, black liquid oozed over the edge of the hole, merging with the dark water covering the floor. I watched in terror as something was forming in the water, rising and taking shape, covered in black ooze. As it grew, I turned and felt my foot being tugged beneath the putrid water, but I lurched forward, freeing my foot and running up the stairs. I bolted through that miserable house, slamming the front door behind me and peeling out of that driveway. When I was finally on the highway, I picked up my phone to call the police. But then I hesitated. I caught my breath and came to my senses. The dispatcher would never believe my bizarre story. They would think I was crazy. I put my phone away and drove home. But something nagged at me. What if I was seen at that house and Ray was now missing? I had to get out in front of any suspicion. I called the police and asked them to do a home check on the house, as my worker hadn't checked in with me. I told them how it was out of character for him to disappear on me. They called later to let me know nothing looked out of place at the house, but they had found his truck there. There was an awkward silence as I debated asking them if they'd checked the basement. I decided against it and hung up. My next call was to my realtor. She wouldn't be happy about it, but I knew she'd handle hiring some loser to clear out that tenant's belongings. There was no way I was going back there. That house would be someone else's problem now. I ended the call and drew a hot bath. I needed to relax and wash whatever toxic waste I'd stepped in off my foot. I'd already missed the Halloween party. As I soaked in the tub, my head leaning against the cool marble wall, I convinced myself that I'd imagined the whole thing. It was just Halloween getting to me. Maybe there was some rational explanation for all of it. I watched drops of water fall from the gold tap and land above my manicured toes. I pouted over missing the Halloween bash, distractedly studying the polish on my toes, until I noticed the falling drops became gray. They swirled, blending with the sudsy water, until their color darkened to thick, black, oily ink, and the faucet suddenly erupted in black water.